we go. All right, for some of you who have not taken a workshop from me before, welcome. Warm greetings from Kodiak. Well, where the heck is Kodiak? Kodiak is located just a little north of Hawaii. And that's the trick question here is, we are the second largest island in the United States. Hawaii is the largest. So welcome everybody. This is a brand new workshop. I had so many people asking me about this. Folks, even in Australia, even though it's their summertime-ish. And so many people start seedlings for fall and year round, really. So I thought it was very appropriate to kind of do it in February. If you've already got seedlings started, it's great. You're going to have some tips and treasures for applying them. So I'm going to make it as human as possible, even though this is a Zoom call and we're casual, there's no dress code. We're going to cover a lot of material. It is traditional to share a sneak peek of what's happening in Kodiak today. I just took this an hour ago. The snow is gone. The raised beds are still covered. You can see I've got giant paper clips here. This is lath strips screwed down here. This is a reinforced plastic like builders use. I load them up with compost, and that means that they don't freeze into solid blocks, or they don't get drenched with winter rains and everything's leached out. So the worms and all the microbes can keep working all winter. Now, if you look, that guy over here, I opened it up and we have the spinach growing. Not quite that big, but soon I'll be able to harvest it. I had some for lunch today. These seeds I started direct sown in the first part of September. So they grew, they formed nice strong roots, and then they continued to grow protected. And in, probably about 4 weeks, our favorite wintergreen spinach will look like this. I have a new YouTube channel and I'm going to make a special video on just this process. So I am excited because today we are going to cover truly how to avoid those weak, leggy, pale seedlings. It's only going to take minutes a day. It's my high five method. So your plants look like those healthy starts you see in a professional greenhouse, even if you've never started seedlings before. Now, when it comes to starting your seedlings, if you're like most gardeners and me when I started, you might have run into some challenges like this. How to know when to start your seeds so you can transplant them outside at the right time. How to grow seedlings in a windowsill. Okay, I know a lot of us deal with that either entirely or partly. And what do you do if your seeds don't sprout? What is it about germination? How to transplant seedlings in larger containers? How do you pot them up? How to grow them so they don't get spindly and just topple over? And honestly, how much water or not does seedlings need? And how often should you water? What about light? This is a tricky one. If you run out of space, we've got tips for you. And how do you know which seeds go directly into the soil or need to be started, or it's helpful to start them indoors? And then, what if you've never even planted a seed in your life? If any of these ring true for you, you're in the right place. I know how it feels to be foreign, maybe to seed starting or struggling with it. For 8 years, my job took me at sea, as far away from a garden as possible. I worked on research ships and tugboats. The closest thing to, well, a seedling or greenery would be the lettuce in our salads. I moved to Kodiak in 1985. I really wanted to get my hands on dirt and grow something because we are an island in the North Pacific. I raised a few broccoli and lettuce seedlings. I planted, I watered, and I failed. I flunked. I looked at my sad seedlings and I realized I had a lot to learn. I figured out how to make compost in 6 weeks. That's another workshop. I knew that I had to learn how to think like a plant. I spent 10 years at that point combing through books, experimenting with seed starting, what worked and what didn't. I talked to experts, and I got rid of things that didn't work, like those myths. We're going to debunk a couple. And in a minute, I'm going to show you a surprise garden. But hey, we have a pop quiz. You guys ready? What color is my scarf in the picture of me that you just saw making compost? In the chat, type it in if you can remember. Okay. Well, it's pink. This is just kind of a warm up because I have little pop quizzes that go along here. But the surprise is, this is what the garden looked like with the compost and starting seeds a few years later. I got my act together and I was so happy. So remember, you don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get it going, okay? Or growing. So I ended up writing a gardening column for 25 years, teaching kids about starting seeds, teaching adults about plants. Now you're going to come to the Seed Starting Secrets journey. For this workshop, we're going to follow this journey, this path, and we're going to talk about why start your own. So this should be right in your workbook. We're going to go through this so you can take notes. We get a little fun thrown in here. We're going to talk about all kinds of seeds for vegetables, herbs, and flowers. We're mostly going to focus on vegetables, but it'll apply to all seeds. So, why start your own? Well, security, maybe a little adventure. Now, you might think these are kind of opposite, but a gardener who starts their own seeds can experience both. For example, security is that confidence in the future. Boy, don't we all need that right now? That springs from one's own courage and ability, right? I mean, you can find most of what we're going to cover today, by the way, online and books on YouTube, but you can't find out that there is confidence to grow your confidence in growing your own seedlings. And that's the main reason why I developed this workshop. So a massive thank you for being here and supporting my work. Now, adventure as a soaring sense that anything is possible, right? And there's so many interesting things to learn these days. Okay, so first of all, you get earlier harvest. Now, even without a good excuse, I think I'd probably continue to raise my own seedlings simply because I really enjoy the process. But when I think about it, there's all kinds of good reasons for nurturing plants from seed. One by one. Earlier harvest because you have the ability to get a jump on the growing season and put fresh food, or herbs or flowers, fresh food on the table even earlier when you start your own tomato, cabbage, lettuce, salad greens indoors for setting outside when the weather mellows or allows. The sooner you can harvest, the greater your overall yield, right? Number two, a greater variety. Varieties of plants offered by most commercial greenhouses. That's just a tiny, tiny slice of what's available to you as a gardener. So for example, if you want to grow an heirloom tomato that's resistant to, say, fusarium wilt, and then cooks up to a nice rich paste that's highly nutritious, then you probably have to find it and start it from seed. Stronger, healthy seedlings. Now, seedlings you've grown yourself can be super duper seedlings. If you do all the right things at the right times, your plants will have well-developed roots, and that's key. A lot of us tend to focus on what's on top, in good soil that hasn't been pumped with chemicals. So your plants will transplant outside better and thrive in their new home, okay? All the way to when you harvest. And then you will save money. Well, maybe. It's true, for the price of a dozen tomato plants, you can buy a handful of seed packets. There's so many choices of seeds out there, right? That you might find yourself trying new varieties and buying more seeds and putting in more raised beds. And so it's kind of like a quilter that just can't get enough fabric squares. But I think when it comes to your health and growing your own vegetables, you're far ahead. So you do stretch your budget. And here's an example, a packet of say 100 lettuce seeds only costs like $3. So 100 heads of lettuce costs, well, in Kodiak, $300 to $500. It's not going down, by the way, right? Health assurance. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, says fresh fruits and vegetables are critical to promoting good health and good gut health, as you'll see. Okay, a serious view of security here. There was a time when seeing empty shelves was kind of a weird thing to see, very isolated incident, but food security is becoming more of a concern. It's a household word these days. You've got extreme weather, you've got hiccups in the supply chain, and a widespread use of chemicals. So this is just one of many, many headlines that we saw, when COVID first hit. And here's an example of what our shelves looked like just a year ago. And it happened this summer as well. Things to remember is nearly 70% of the produce that's sold in the US contains residues of chemical pesticides. The USDA tests food, but not very much of it. And a recent study found 22 different pesticides on one strawberry. Changing the subject here, you've got the happiness factor. And there's nothing like raising your own cucumbers all the way from the seed to your plate. And planting seeds indoors is a great cure for, I'm looking outside, the winter blues. And being around green growing things is a mental health boost for sure. And kids learn where real food comes from. So the seed starting journey, we're going to start with gathering, as in tools and stuff, and growing, and then we're going to graduate. So let's start with gather. Gathering as in seeds, choosing your medium, containers, when and what to sow, preparing your workspace, and then we're going to plant seeds. Let's say you purchased some seeds or saved some yourself, or a neighbor gave some seeds to you. Maybe they're tomatoes they grew last year. You're really anxious to plant, get started on the growing season, right? But before you plant one seed, pause and take a moment to consider the seed itself. Hey, you guys. Speaking of seeds, what is the largest seed in the world? It's like Jeopardy.
Avocado.
Bigger than that. It's the coconut. Yeah, so coconut is the largest seed. So dry, flaky, smooth, round, warded, ridgy, spiky. They might look as lifeless as my February garden out there, but don't be fooled. Seeds don't spring to life when you plant them. Seeds are already alive. So inside even the tiniest dust-like grain of seed is a living plant. Gardeners use many seeds that are actually fruits. It's important to remember that seeds themselves are completely self-contained. We're going to cover this a little later on. Meanwhile, here's a great word. It's too long for Scrabble though. Dormancy. So what is dormancy? I want to offer some reassurance to some of you who have tried to grow some seedlings and failed. There might be a little unseen factor in place here, like dormancy. So if you've ever tried to successfully grow a row of lettuce, but it didn't work in the middle of the summer heat, or germinate Himalayan blue seeds that you bought in a gift shop, you have an idea of how dormant seeds behave. I'm sharing this with you because you might have wondered why your seeds didn't sprout in the first place, okay? You see, dormancy is a protective device. It's designed to assure the, how should I say, continuity of the species. It's rarely a problem with vegetable seeds though, except for heat sensitive seeds like lettuce and celery. And then, beans and mustard, they never go dormant. So it's often a problem when you're germinating seeds like wildflowers, trees, and shrubs. But as a gardener, you might want to break dormancy. So how do you give seedlings the message that it's okay to sprout now? Okay. How to break dormancy? Temperature, you can chill or freeze the seeds. This happened with a friend of mine who went to Butchart Gardens in Victoria, BC, and she found out that she needed to put that packet of seeds in the freezer because those blue poppies, I showed you the picture here, they're a top of the world plant. They like it cool and they need to have a freeze snap and also light. So you can subject your seeds to light to break dormancy. And also you might know that, say, Douglas fir trees that grow in the Pacific Northwest, they, I think, require fire to break dormancy. I could be wrong there. Choose your medium. So what the heck is a medium? So it's a person who conducts seances. And actually, medium is a seed starting or soil mix for growing seedlings. So the first step in encouraging your seeds to grow into the plants they deserve to be is you need to prepare a starting medium. It'll nurture your seeds through two important stages. One, seed germination. Number two is raising seedlings. So there's two kinds of seed starting mediums or mixes. Number one is the seed starting mix for germinating your seeds. And number two, this is the potting mix for transplanting, or when you transplant them to the next size larger pot. So how are they different? Here's my famous sketch. Okay. I like to doodle. You start with your seeds, right? And you're going to germinate them in the seed starting mix. And then we're going to pot them up or transplant them into larger pots using a seed potting mix. Since, remember, seeds are completely self-contained. So your seed starting or germination mixes do not need to be rich. I'll say that again. The seed starting mixes, that is the soil or the mix that you start your seeds in, does not need to have anything like food or fertilizer. It does not need to be rich. And it's best if they're not. Now, a seed starting mix, the medium that you see here, it simply provides the physical substrate or foundation for seed germination. They just need to be light, as in fluffy, spongy, and moist. That's it. Does not have to have any food in it, okay? Now your seed starting mixes, you can buy them or you can mix your own. And here are three of my favorite do-it-yourself options. You can use just vermiculite, or number two, you can mix vermiculite and milled sphagnum moss. And when I say milled, here's an example. So what I did just a couple months ago is I went out to the woods and I collected moss, like the stuff that falls off the trees or rips off in the wind or is growing on top of a rock. And I brought it into the garage and I dried them on trays. And then I got a used food processor. And guess what? I milled it in the food processor. And it works. It's just great. So that's just one way that you can do your own. All right. And number three is you get equal parts of vermiculite, milled sphagnum moss, and perlite. Now, vermiculite and perlite, by the way, these are natural minerals that are just puffed like popcorn. So there's no chemicals or anything involved in them. Now remember, neither vermiculite or perlite or sphagnum moss contain the nutrients necessary for plant growth. So seedlings grow in these substances or mixtures of them. They need to be fed regularly until they get their roots in real soil. I mean, you can provide food in liquid form. We'll talk about that. And it's pretty much like hydroponic gardening, where the growing medium just serves as a, how should I say, just like a platform to hold the seeds up. But really, truly, seedlings benefit from a more complex interaction that takes place in real soil. So they should eventually be potted up to a richer mixture. And we'll talk about that. And it'll look kind of like this. So your potting mix, when you transplant them to larger pots, needs to be richer. There's all kinds of options out there, the potting mediums or mixes. So these are different from the more bland seed starting mixes because they provide that nourishment for the growing plants, okay? So they're mostly, the commercial ones are mostly moss, peat moss based. They can be rather expensive. And to make your own, ta-da, here we go again. Here's a couple of recipes, some of my favorites, okay? This is a myth we've heard for decades, as in seed starting and potting mixes should be sterile to prevent damping off disease. Myth number 2, do not use soil from the garden for starting seeds. Again, that dreaded damping off disease. So I went to Jeff Lowenfels. He is a garden writer in Anchorage, Alaska. He has the longest running gardening column in the United States. And he's written these 4 books, which are really good. And he said you want to use living soil, not sterile soil. And I said, okay, Jeff, great. What is the best living soil? And he said compost is the best seed starting mix. He says, because the microbes in it, as in living soil, are almost always diverse enough to keep the fungi and bacteria that cause damping off in check. Interesting, isn't that? So containers, your seeds are ready. You've got your seed starting mix. Now it's time to go on a treasure hunt through your closets, your pantry, your kitchen, your garage for containers. This is the temporary home for your seedlings. So let's go through some containers for the potting up of seedlings. Oh, for starting seedlings, here, let me go through this. I did a boo-boo here. This is for starting. So here's the list of containers for starting seedlings. And it might be like milk jugs. When you get a milk jug like this, let's see here. You then at that point want to cut it in half. You can cut it in half like this. So you got 2 halves. You can take a milk jug and do the same thing. You can cut it in half and just take the top off. So now you have this whole area here and 2 halves of your milk carton to grow seedlings in, okay? You can also build your own and sprinkle seeds in these kinds of containers. And these are flats. These are kind of your classic wood flats. And you can make these from pallets, scrap wood. It's just kind of a classic, feels really good kind of way to start seedlings. You can use takeout trays and salad green containers. More popular ones for starting seeds would be like tofu containers. This had mushrooms in it, cottage cheese. I'm not real keen on egg cartons. And one of my favorite ways to start small seeds is to use a mini block cuber like this. Now, Harriet had a question, by the way, for the commercial potting soil. It's such an unregulated industry. It's getting better. They claim to be sterile, but if you have potting mixes that has compost in it and mycorrhizal fungi, it's not sterile. And you know what? There's nothing in this world that's sterile. I mean, I have this glass of water here, and it went through a filter, but I know it's not sterile. It's supposed to be, but not always is. And I use these soil cubers or blocker for small seeds. And we'll talk about how to do this, but you punch out 20 seeds at a time. And when you get ready to transplant them, you just kind of pick up the little cube and transplant it. Now, containers for potting up seedlings. Lots of options here.